well over 30 years. Thursdays, 5 o'clock, answering legal questions. What we do here is offer up free legal advice on anything that might be troubling you. Child support, divorce, custody, estates, wills, trusts, evictions, medical malpractice, auto accidents, speeding tickets, disputes that you might have, anything and everything. It's a litigious society, and the whole goal of this program is to answer your legal questions so that you don't have to run up a bill with your lawyer. All right, so we'll point you in the right direction. We'll do our best at answering your legal question, and we don't even send you a bill for it. It's all courtesy of the law firm Beatrice Kopp on News Radio 570 WQEN. So if you have a legal question, give me a call at 330-729-9977. 330-729-9977. We'll get you through to us as we proceed on till 6 o'clock tonight. All right, with legal questions, 330-729-9977. All right, let's go to the firm of Beatrice Kopp. We're gathered around the big table. Let's hope attorney Mark DeVecchio, the world's greatest family law attorney, should join us. He's the real deal, folks. When you can find an attorney that's knowledgeable and a decent guy, you've struck gold. Hello, Mark DeVecchio, are you with us?
Hello, Ron. I am here. Thank you for your kind words.
Well, and they're meant because, you know, DeVecchio is that way, gang. I always say, I hope you never go through a divorce. And quite frankly, Mark, you would wish that for everybody, too.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, you don't want anybody to go through a divorce because you deal with it on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's not a good thing, right?
It is never a pleasant thing, ever. And there's never a winner. You never a winner in a divorce case.
Right. I mean, you know, so... I mean, not to say that there isn't just reasons for people getting divorced. I'm sure that you've handled many divorce cases where, you know, the people that were thrown in a towel were good at probably should have gotten divorced. Would you agree?
I agree, Ron. Dave just walked in and he's talking to me and I'm like, all right, I'm okay. Well, I'm sorry, Ron. I missed what you said.
No, I'm saying you would probably say over the years, there's been many divorce cases where you thought these people should get a divorce.
Yes. You know what? I'm not always saying that's a tough question because you know what? I believe if you commit to a marriage and you have children, you owe it to your children to try to remain in it. Now, if there's abuse happening, if there's abusing of substances, if there's physical abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, I'm not telling you should stay in a marriage like that. All I'm saying is where you're married, where there's children, where there's a family, you need to try your best to save your marriage and earn your divorce. And if you can't save your marriage, then you got to try your best to get your divorce done.
Have you ever had cases, I'll get to phone calls momentarily, where people start getting a divorce and as it goes on, they reconcile and say, this isn't for me?
All the time. All the time. Yes. Where you get, and I've had cases where they're getting a divorce, they reconcile, and then they're getting a divorce again. So, you know, when you're dealing with matters of the heart, Ron, there's no rhyme or reason.
Right. But unfortunately, you know, a lot of times children pay a price if you have a family.
I agree. That's why I say where there are children, you need to work a little bit harder to earn your divorce. That's just my personal opinion.
It's not just about you and your spouse. Now there's others involved in it.
Right. And unfortunately, I've seen people take the process of divorce to extremes whereby they weaponize their children to inflict harm on the other spouse. And that's a real pet peeve of mine. So not only is divorce bad for children, but sometimes in the divorce process, children are harmed. And you know, I always try to guard against that.
Absolutely. And that's why I say, folks, that Attorney DeVecchio is really one of the best. I mean, Mark's a straight shooter. He's the type of guy that says, you know, how much do you want to spend over, you know, you want the television and do you want to spend all this money in legal fees fighting to get it, or you just want to go buy a new one?
Absolutely.
I mean, you actually are client-based where you want to keep the client's bill as low as possible as opposed to make them indigent by the time the divorce is over.
Well,
that's the difference with you, DeVecchio.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I try to be pragmatic. I'd like to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So that's kind of my mantra.
Well, I think that's just part of your DNA.
Thank you.
It's part of your RNDNA.
Yes. Okay. You're slipping that in there,
All right.
huh?
And who's joining? So Beatrice finally arrived for the show tonight.
And when he saw Matt Miller Novak, he quickly turned around and left the room because he figured that we have all the intellectual powerhouses we need in this room right now. Matt comes from
who
us.
Who is this Matt Miller Novak? I've never heard of Matt Miller Novak.
Matt's been with us before, Ron. He's offices in Cincinnati. He and David have a lot of cases together. He's in town on a case that he and David are working on. Matt, say hello to Ron.
Forte.
What's your forte?
Hello. Have you been on a show before? What's your forte?
Constitutional law, Ron.
I remember him. He's an Austintown boy, right?
Yes.
He's from Austintown.
Yes. Austintown grad. We discussed donut oven.
Yes, time. You had a donut debate.
Yeah, and all right. So he's in town. He's a constitutional guy.
Yes,
I see how that goes. What's your, not to get in the world of politics, but there's a lot of talk these days. What's your opinion on this idea of, being born here and being an American, and the argument that we're all going to hear from both sides, quite frankly, from a constitutional standpoint?
Great question.
Going to be an interesting argument to listen to.
Well, there was a case on point in the late 1800s. That was a person of Chinese descent who was born here and left the country, tried to come back in. And Supreme Court held that people born here are citizens under the 14th Amendment. So I think it was a pretty clear holding once upon a time. It hasn't been addressed for a really long time. And, well, we'll see. But the simple answer is you can't use an executive order that contradicts with the United States Constitution. You can have a statute that contradicts. Even if Congress passed a statute and it contradicts with the Constitution, it's not going to be constitutional. So you kind of have to amend the Constitution to probably pull off people born in the United States of America not becoming citizens, in my opinion.
Is it an interpretation thing, Matt? Like, it seems like they're always arguing over what does this word mean, the interpretation of everything.
No, it pretty clearly says people born in
right.
the United States.
You have 150 years of precedent.
Or citizens. I mean, there are some things in the Constitution that I think are vague enough or ambiguous enough to argue. I don't know about that one though. It's
I always hear the people on the Second Amendment, thou shall not infringe, and say, well, it's pretty clear when it comes to guns. Do you agree with that? I mean,
on
the
wording. The case law prior to 2010, there was a case called DC versus Heller. The case law before that did not determine that there was an individual right to bear arms. So it was always tied, generally speaking, in the case law to membership within some kind of militia, not just a militia, well-regulated, which today would almost kind of be a certified militia, which is the National Guard. So in DC versus Heller in 2010, there was kind of a paradigm shift. So prior to that case, constitutional professors in law school didn't even teach the Second Amendment.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's one of the most argued ones to this day. Would you not agree?
No, I would say the First Amendment is probably the most argued one because the right to free speech, and that's kind of my focus of my practice is First Amendment law. But the reality is, do you have free speech in a prison? Do you have free speech in a school? And to what extent can you go into a meeting? And what extent do you have free speech in a public meeting? So actually, that's pretty heavy. It's still, there's a case that was not that old INQ that kind of dealt with even trademark registration and profanity and vulgar words in trademark registration. So First Amendment is always kind of an organic kind of area of jurisprudence within constitutional law.
When you get into public meetings and free speech, it is, you don't want to argue, well, this guy can talk for 20 minutes, and eat up all the time because he's got freedom of speech. They have a right to have rules and a time frame. Would you not agree?
Yeah, in a public meeting, it's called a limited public forum, and governments have they're called time, place, manner restrictions. So they have to be content neutral. You could say 3 minutes per person, and a couple other things. It has to be germane to the government's business. I don't know if you've ever been in a city council meeting. You really don't want to listen to anybody talk. Usually, it starts to get pretty awful. So, but yeah, you're allowed to do that, but you're not allowed to discriminate against people's viewpoints in almost any type of forum. whether public, non-public, or limited. You can't discriminate against viewpoints, generally
Mhm.
speaking.
Mm-hmm. I picture Matt, Mark, like he should have one of them feather pens and everything, like the John Hancock,
Like one of the
signature on it.
founders. One of the
Yes,
he is wearing a
when
bow tie though.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You can't take anybody serious that wears a bow tie. I mean, for the love of God! I mean,
You know what? His partner Keith, who is an IP lawyer, intellectual property lawyer, is just pointing at his face right now when you said that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take it. Remember when Tucker Carlson used to wear a bow tie and he had to ditch that? I mean, I can't think of Charles Osgood wore a bow tie, and Charlie McCarthy wore a bow tie. You can't take anybody serious in a bow tie. Matt, listen to me. You'll do much better if you get rid of that bow tie.
No way, man.
If you listen to Ron, though, Matt, he's open collar, gold chains, thick chest hair.
Yeah.
That's Ron's look.
I can assure you, Mark, that's not my culture.
I'll tell you one thing, Ron. Gerald Ford's bodyguard used to wear a bow tie, and he was an old-timey boxer. And the reason he wore a bow tie is because when he was beating the tar out of somebody, they couldn't grab his tie. So how about that? There's a pretty bad representation of the bow tie.
Yes.
Well, my. I think my freedom of speech is being harmed here a little bit because I don't like the guy's bow tie, Mark. You know what I mean? I have a right to express my opinion.
You have a right to express your fashion sense, Ron.
It doesn't give it value, but you're allowed to express it.
I'm just telling you what probably these guys at the firm are saying behind your back. Can you believe he's wearing a bow tie? You know what I mean? And
they say it to my face.
Keith says
they say it to my face.
We have another lawyer here, Ron. His Keith.
Yeah.
Sklar. S-K-L-A-R. Sklar.
Keith Sklar. So he is with Matt, and
is he wearing a bow tie too?
He is not. Actually, he's open collar.
Yeah, I'm just like you, Ron.
Okay, he needs to get close to a mic. I don't have any.
Sorry about that, Ron.
Okay, it was off.
I'm like
what's
open
his
collar.
expertise?
Well, generally speaking, transactional and intellectual property law. So contracts, perhaps for somebody who hosts a radio show who has to provide their services as an independent contractor and provide their name and likeness for advertising said show and rendering the services that talent does in various forms of media. I sometimes work for a public relations firm that do social media promotions. I assist businesses in protecting their brands with the USPTO and registering trademarks. I tend to help Matthew by arguing with him. You're going to prompt a discussion at dinner about Wong-Kar Ark and the definition of the term subject to the jurisdiction thereof over drinks, I think, because there's nothing lawyers like more than to not only get paid to argue, but also to argue with their very good friends for fun.
Yes. Right. Have no fear. There's nothing intellectual going on up here, so I have no intellectual property.
People tell me that all the time, Ron.
Thank you. Let's take some calls for you guys. All right, on the legal show, you're on the air. What's your legal question? Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
First, to let you know, I've been waiting since the 4:15. Okay, I was on the last show too.
All right, go ahead, dear.
First, I have a question. If I put my estate or the financial part of it in a trust for my daughter who is married and may be getting a divorce, can her husband get part of that during a divorce?
You want to put your estate in a trust, okay?
Yeah, I mean,
for my daughter.
The bottom line
your
is,
daughter. Go ahead.
Your daughter's husband has no right to any monies that you own now, even if it is earmarked for your daughter down the road. I mean, I wouldn't do anything with your money. If she's going to get a divorce, let her get a divorce, and it's a non-issue. Your money is your money. Her husband can't tap into that unless you give it to her during the marital term. And then I would argue that, a gift is separate property anyway. There are ways to protect any monies that you have intended for your daughter to keep that out of a marital asset division. You could create a trust depending on the amount. Well, if she dies,
Mark, then is that
inheritance is separate property. Yes. And
all right. So the husband's not entitled to anything.
Correct.
In that sense.
Correct. Yes. If she is a
Now,
beneficiary under your will.
Even if they have a dissolution divorce.
Well, if they have a dissolution, it means they agreed on everything. And if they agree on everything, I would say that your daughter should agree that any monies that she's going to get from you are her monies, and he is not entitled to any of them. And then you could get a dissolution.
But listen here, old timer, when you're talking about a trust, she probably wants a trust if you got any money so that you don't get bilked if you got to go in a nursing home. Would you agree, Mark?
I agree. You're not calling me old timer, right, Ron?
I was calling her.
Okay.
But no, from your standpoint, I'm just saying. Go ahead.
I'm going to have my son as executor of the trust and her second, so there'll be no problem there. I don't think. I have another question. Is a medical power? No, is a durable power of attorney just as now? Can my son, if I die, will he be able to handle my stuff without having a power of attorney?
A durable power of attorney is much more far-reaching than a medical power of attorney. A durable power of attorney essentially puts a third party in a position to do anything that you yourself have the right to do. So they could enter into contracts, they could sell possessions, they could do anything you want. It depends on what powers you are looking to instill in your son, and that would depend on how you would set that up. You could do a regular power of attorney. A durable power of attorney would follow you into the hospital in the event you're incapacitated. There's a number of different ways. It depends on what you want to get done.
Would you not agree, Mark, that, first of all, if she sets up a trust, and you probably should do it so that you got to live 5 more years before you get out of that look back period with, if you go in a nursing home,
correct,
so that you don't lose everything. But would you not also agree it makes it easier on her children that things are basically seamless, if you will, and avoid probate because there's a trust it's a great instrument. And anybody who sets up a trust is going to ask you, hey, if you're incapacitated, who makes your medical decisions and who can write checks? I mean, that's all a part of it.
I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
He's also as co-owner of my checking, so there's no problem there. That would he could automatically control that. So
correct.
That's what I needed to know, is if he would have the power. Go ahead.
Get a trust, lady. Just get one.
You could put him on the title to your motor vehicle, and that would keep that out of probate. You could be tenants in common. You could have a joint survivorship deed on any real property you own. That would keep that out of probate court.
Let's see. My husband passed away, and I sold my house, so all I have is my IRA and retirement account. The other account that was my inheritance from my mother is only about $350,000, but I don't know how much of that, like you say, I will need. But my son can take over if I run out.
Right.
But I just want to make sure if I do die with some, but if in a normal will, she would get my property and he could not take it in a divorce.
Correct. And I don't think an IRA is a probate asset.
You can set up a beneficiary designation to split the difference between both your kids.
Yeah,
and it's not
and avoid probate.
Asset.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah.
Listen to Matt Miller. Make sure you have a beneficiary on that IRA of yours, on all those things.
I have. My son is on all of them with her as second, but also I started transferring money out of the IRA into that thing. You pay your tax before you put it in that account, and
Roth.
Then the person. Yeah, I'm transferring $30,000 at a time each year in a Roth. So when it does transfer, she doesn't pay taxes on it.
All right. Well, that's all well and good, but hey, Mark, would you not agree with this? Now, listen, lady, you have $350,000, and God bless you. But if you go into a nursing home, they're going to charge you $10,000 a month, and you're going to lose it all. If you live 5 more years and you put it in a trust, all of this, you might avoid that being taken from you for that situation.
Matt, and I trust Matt.
Now,
Matt says it's 7 years, Ron.
It's 7 now. It used to be 5.
Yeah, I think they bumped it 2 more years.
And it has to be a specific kind of trust. I mean, I hope you hire
it's
an
non-revocable.
attorney.
Yeah,
you have to have the right kind of attorney to do an irrevocable trust and things like that. And then you have to set up the trust as the beneficiary of the IRA.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, dear. Go ahead.
What kind should I get? Irrevocable or revocable?
Irrevocable.
I think you need to talk to an estate planning attorney, but I mean, it's probably going to be irrevocable. You have to have certain spendthrift provisions. So this is certainly not something you should do yourself.
Matt, Mr. Constitution, I just had one done a while back, and
how much did it?
Listen, I had one done, and it's a 5-year look back period from the time your trust is completed. So you better live 5 years before you got to go to a nursing home. But if you get a good
Well, my mom was
estate,
98 and she was never in a nursing
all
home.
right, good for you. Well, think about it. But you need a good estate attorney for that, right? DeVecchio?
I agree. Absolutely.
We all agree.
Call the firm and we could give you some names and numbers.
You know what I mean? And that's what it's all about. So, all right. How about that Matt Miller just jumping right in there?
That's why he's here. That's why he's here to carry the weight.
Know.
Incidentally,
I know,
Jim,
the guy with that,
Jim Melfi just
the
sat
guy
down.
without the
Hi,
bow tie
Ron.
was quiet. Melfi.
What's going
Jim
on?
Melfi, hello. How are you?
Doing well.
Welcome, Attorney Melfi. Attorney Melfi, tell me what your thoughts are about that guy wearing a bow tie. I mean, do you take him serious?
I do take him seriously. Matt and I worked on some cases together, and I take him very seriously. Based upon
When you take him to court, do you say, take the bow tie off and put this on?
no, listen, it works for him. If I put on a bow tie
In court, that intimidates people. A bow tie in court is intimidating.
if I put on a bow tie, I'd look ridiculous. But it
Maybe
works
not in
for
a
him.
bar, but in court it is.
Right, but good thing. Next thing you know, he's going to grow a Billy Goat beard. You're on the air. Hello, caller.
I just got stink-eyed.
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, caller. What's your question?
Yeah, so I was in a auto collision on the 22nd of November,
Mhm.
and it turns out the other party I was involved with doesn't have insurance, so I'm going to need to take them to small claims court. And the court said
for what?
before I file before I go to sue the guy, I need to have his name, address, phone number, all of his information, but I don't have his address.
Now hold on before
Was there a
you
police-
go
And,
ahead and do that. I have a couple
Yes.
suggestions. Do you have your own auto policy?
I do.
Okay. I would look to your policy to see if you have what's called uninsured motorist coverage. So if you have uninsured motorist coverage and the person that was at fault did not have insurance, you can look to your own insurance company for recovery, whether that's for medical expenses, pain and suffering. I would do that. Investigate that before you do anything regarding small
Yes,
claims.
because you paid for
Stand
that
by.
coverage.
Just
Yeah.
wait, hang on. Wait, hang on, caller. Hang on, caller. I'll let the guys finish answering your question right after the break on News Radio 570
It was a
WQAM.
normal day.
No, that was awesome. That's great.
And I had to
Keith laughed.
impulse
You gotta
call
have
him,
something.
but I
First
did
off,
it.
you had to laugh at.
I thought I could call him
I
later
bet.
that week.
Well, I know. I picked up on Matt's sense of humor the last
abandoned the
time we were
car
here.
and came home.
I love his. You on?
Talk about Dred Scott too.
Yeah, we can.
I remember that case from law school.
Yeah.
In fact, I haven't heard that since law school. Why Dred Scott stuck in my
They
mind?
weren't considered people; they were considered property.
Yeah.
Okay,
But then
that's
you had the
why.
Reconstruction package, which was 14, 15, and 16.
That's why the 14th Amendment was passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And specifically made them subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
I enjoyed constitutional law. It was a great class.
I did far better in it than I expected, I will tell you. It's one of those things in law school where you
Quick
go,
story.
how did I get a good grade on the final?
You talk about kind of foreboding. I went to law school. I had family law. It was a blow-off class. It was Monday.
but it has no effect on the class action suit, which is still in the appeal process. So that's all I know on that. If you guys have any comment on that, do you have any other information?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if you're part of the class, you got to wait until the appeal is resolved.
All right. There you go. Let's go back to this person. So you were telling them turn it into their own insurance, Attorney Melfi, right?
Yeah, if he has what's called uninsured motorist coverage, then his own insurance company is going to step in to take care of any medical bills, pain, and suffering. You know, I mean, I don't know if he had property damage on his car or not. So I would look to his, okay. You
How
know,
bad were you hurt?
I only had state minimum liability on my insurance coverage.
So you had no uninsured. Have you confirmed that?
Yes, I have confirmed that. I checked with my auto policy about a week ago just to make sure, and I even got a letter in the mail from the other insurance company because the guy said he had insurance, but he had comprehensive insurance, and the lady said that isn't sufficient coverage to get my vehicle fixed. So I decided I have to take him to court now.
All right, let me ask
But
you
like I said,
a couple questions real quick. Did the police come?
the police did come, but he was not present at the scene.
Okay, so he
Where'd he go?
left the scene.
He said he was late for a business meeting, something like that. But yeah, we exchanged information, and after that he left, and then that's when the police arrived shortly after
So
that.
what information did you exchange?
I got his insurance card and his name, his phone number, and that's it.
Is there an address on the insurance card?
There's no address on the insurance card.
Okay, so in order to initiate a lawsuit, you have to have him served. You have to do everything reasonable within your power to determine where he lives to get personal service. You could start with the insurance company sending them a letter. You could start with utility companies. Do you have his phone number? I forgot. Do you have his phone number?
I do have his phone number.
Well, I would call him and ask him. You could also Google the phone number. It'll come back to a name. I mean, there's a lot of breadcrumbs out there that if you just start following him, I'm sure you could eventually get his address.
Let me ask a question, Mark, on this guy's behalf. And if the guy doesn't have insurance and he's driving anyway, and he left the scene because he said he has to be somewhere. Caller, what makes you think that you're going to be able to sue him and get any money from him if he's that irresponsible?
Ron, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Because he did have an insurance policy with Grange Insurance, but he had comprehensive insurance, and that vehicle was not supposed to be on the road. So I'm going to and they declared that it was his fault. He ended up running the red light. So and he's claiming that he had insurance or whatever, but I don't think that he understands that comprehensive isn't the same as liability.
Right.
And that's state requirement.
Or maybe he did understand it, and that's why he had to be somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it sounds like he might have taken it off and forgot to put it on the other way and that kind of stuff. But I'm trying to get a grip on the fact that this guy let him leave the scene, and the cops never. Did the cops give him a ticket, or did anybody?
Especially if they cited him for going through a red light.
Yeah, did they cite him?
No, they didn't cite him. The police never talked to the guy.
So you could say the light was green if nobody got a ticket, right, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
He could say, I guess it is his word against mine, but I mean,
were there any witnesses?
Yeah, really. No, there wasn't any witnesses. I don't think anything along the lines of that. But his insurance did say that they opened an investigation, and upon further investigating, as the lady stated, she said that he didn't have insufficient auto insurance coverage or something along the lines of that. So they did open an investigation, his insurance company, but their investigation said we're not on the hook for it, but they didn't investigate whether or not you ran the light or he ran the light. Is that correct, Attorney Melfi?
Yeah. So we've received those letters a lot from insurance companies. So you can get a letter that says we've investigated the crash and we believe either you were at fault or you were partially at fault, or it could be some sort of technical coverage defense. You know, that's something we deal with all the time.
If I may ask, what are your damages?
My damages is front left headlight, front left corner of my hood,
How much?
and front
How much?
approximately $3,000.
Okay. Well, you're
Sue him, Mark, in small claims or not?
yeah, but you got to find his address, and you're going to have to expend some time hunting it down. Unless you call the insurance company and say, "Okay, I understand he doesn't have the coverage. What is the address associated with that policy?" They may be able to give that out. I don't know. They may not.
I tried to contact the insurance about that today because that's what the courts told me, and the insurance isn't able to give me the his address for privacy purposes. So that's why that's pretty much why I was calling today is to find out ways of getting this guy's address if the police station I filed the report with doesn't have it and his insurance isn't able to give it to me. Is what's another way that I could find it?
I would start with Googling his name.
People find
Yeah,
it.
you can
Yeah.
usually find it.
Yeah, there are apps where they'll find people for you, but it's going to cost you more money.
Yeah, there's stalkers.
You know-
Really?
You know what amazes me? What amazes me? Hey, Mark, would you not agree with this?
Yes. Matt just said there's stalkers that do these things all the time.
Ask
Yeah,
a stalker.
well,
You got a stalker?
yeah.
Yeah,
you got to hit him up.
They'll find it. Trust me.
But here's the reality. I mean, I tell everybody the same thing, and tell me if you agree, Mark.
Yes.
And even I'll go to Mr. Constitution on this. Listen, Mr. Constitution, on what I would say to everybody. If you get in an auto accident, all of you listening, everybody's got a phone with a camera on it. I was always told the first thing you do is take a picture of the license plate. You take a picture of the car and the driver, so they can't say they weren't there. You start using your phone and your camera immediately in case they leave the scene.
Yeah,
Take
let
the
him leave
license
the
plate, take a
scenes.
picture of the car, take a picture of the driver, and get these pictures so that you have some type of evidence to present if the guy leaves.
Were you
or
near
to be able to find him.
Were you near any businesses or anywhere nearby?
might be
Maybe there was
cameras.
cameras.
Yeah, I was in front of a True North gas station, and I spoke to them shortly after the accident, asking about security footage, and the lady told me that the security footage gets deleted after 30 days if no one requests it. And I'm assuming no one requested it since then, but yeah, I was in front of the gas station. Whether they have the footage
You would have
from
been
November 22nd, I'm unsure of that.
You would have been
Yeah.
the one to request it, though. You should have requested it. You should have put them on notice right then. This guy just took off, and I got to get that.
If their camera covers the street, though. Mark.
Again, they
Yeah.
were unable to give me any security footage and without a police warrant or something along the lines of that.
Can you ask the constitutional attorney if it's freedom of speech for me to tell this guy he's screwed?
Yeah, that's
Is that covered under the First Amendment?
Viewpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I think you're screwed, caller. All right, thanks for your call. That's what I think I have the First Amendment right to say that, don't you, Mark?
Yeah, I do.
mean, yeah.
I agree with you.
yeah, it's your
I mean, this
opinion.
was in November. What is it now? It's almost February right now.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Ron, you made a good point about the camera, though. People can take evidence at the scene immediately. Sure.
Always use your phone. You got it on there because people, you might find this hard to believe. I don't know if you guys know this as lawyers, but people lie.
Yeah,
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah,
No,
we've
sir.
experienced that.
Really?
Yeah.
Sometimes they do. Now, I'm
Leaving the
not
scene,
talking about,
yeah.
I'm not talking about people from Cincinnati or wherever this guy's from, Columbus. I'm talking
Cincinnati.
about the rest of us.
An important business
Cincinnati?
meeting. That's suspect.
You mean people
So he's not
understate
a-
their income
Yeah, he's a
for child support purposes?
He's like an entrepreneur of business, but he doesn't have a liability policy. Right?
Now
He's like the CEO of a company with no liability policy.
Now, let me ask you this, Mr. Cincinnati.
Yeah.
When you're practicing down there, since you're in Cincinnati, have you ever met the famed Bill Cunningham, who's also a talk show host and an attorney?
I've not met Bill, but we know of Bill Cunningham. Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
It's actually
I don't know
a
if he
pretty popular
practices.
lawsuit. It was in my law school casebook with Bill Cunningham, where someone blew, I think, cigar smoke in his face, and whether or not that constituted battery, I believe. I think that was
What was the outcome?
It is battery. Sending the smoke and the particles into someone's face intentionally could be deemed to be battery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
How about if I'm on a car trip with DeVecchio and I had lunch at Chipotle and something else happens? Would that be?
Yeah, that's definitely a battery.
What you should change? Yeah, you should change the fact pattern to David, though. I mean, that'd be that could be manslaughter, David, if it's David.
Hey, you got to do
Felonious
me a favor,
assault.
Melfi, you got to do me a favor and make sure they see the calendar. Okay, before they go. All right, let's take some more calls for our attorneys tonight. Legal Show brought to you by Beatrice Cop. You're on the air. Caller, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
I got a question about if an individual passes away, is his family responsible for the debt?
No.
The estate isn't it, Mark?
Yeah, the estate is, but the family's not. The estate is if you open an estate. But there are ways by delaying the opening an estate, you might defeat creditors' claims if you wait long enough.
6 months.
Yeah, if you wait
All
6
right,
months.
So he's got major debt. He's has terminal cancer, and he's got major debt: back taxes, IRS,
All right.
mortgage,
So
all kinds of crazy
his
stuff.
estate's on the hook, but don't ever represent that you are going to be responsible for these debts. If you let somebody know, or you make a payment, or you do anything to show that you're cognizant of the debt and it appears that you are accepting the debt as your own, you're going to be on the hook. So, my sympathy for your loss. As long as you stay out of it, they'll never come after you. If you hold off opening an estate, you could defeat the creditors' claims.
Let me ask you this, Mark, on his behalf.
Yes.
And you know what they say? There's two things you can't get away from: death and taxes. If he owes the IRS and he opens an estate at any point, doesn't he have to pay those taxes?
I don't.
There's
I
no
think
getting out of
IRS
them.
taxes. Well,
I don't believe you can get out of that.
Well, you typically have to file, like when you probate an estate, eventually you have to file a final tax return, I believe.
yeah. And the estate would be responsible for anything owed to the IRS.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same
So
point in time, the IRS
he has
can
no
only-
estate or nothing at all right now. He has actually nothing. He doesn't have a home. He lives in my house because we're taking care of him.
Then don't
Because
file an estate.
can't-
Don't do anything. Yeah, I wouldn't
Don't do
file.
anything?
No,
No, he's
There's-
an
if he has no
insolvent estate.
assets, there's nothing to pass to beneficiaries. So I wouldn't do anything, and
Okay.
I think the creditors can't go after anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very good. Thank
Good
you.
luck. I'm sorry
Because
for your father.
A lot of times, if you're the executor, Mark, watch this. I'm gonna impress this guy from Cincinnati. I might wear a bow tie in the next program, DeVecchio. I might sound smarter. If you would write a check, if you're the executor of the estate and write a check to the IRS, and then they say you owe additional taxes, you as the executor are on the hook for that.
Not
if you-
personally.
No.
Really, I had heard you were on the hook for it if the estate was settled and everybody got their money, and they came back and said, "Oh, you owe additional money."
The estate, as the executor of the estate is still responsible. So in your capacity as an executor acting on behalf of the state, yes, there's a responsibility there. But in your own personal private life, there is no personal responsibility.
Right.
Right, Matt?
A fiduciary is, so the estate is really just the person's legal existence after they pass earth. You could think of it that way. And when you act as the executor, the fiduciary, you do have a duty, and that is to properly follow the law for the distribution of the assets. So if you're a fiduciary, and let's say that you try to pass money to family members or yourself when the IRS has a claim or there's a creditor, you can get in individual trouble for breach of your fiduciary duty. So you have to follow the law in your practice, and that's why fiduciaries have to get bonded sometimes. So
Let me ask
Yeah.
you this, Matt. Usually, if the IRS is disputing something before you close probate or give the money out, you better make sure you're done with the IRS first. Would you agree with that?
I would agree for that, because if a fiduciary violates the law in handling the state, that person can be responsible for certain debts or penalties and things like that. And yeah. So you do have
Now,
to
do you-
watch things like that, of course.
Do you ever wear your Freddie the Falcon sweatshirt anymore, Matt?
I do not have a Falcons sweatshirt, but I still have a stocking hat from Austin Town Fitch.
All right. I mean, I'm a little shocked. I mean, do you still wear your Letterman's jacket?
I believe it's at my parents' house.
Can
right
you
now.
fit in it?
I doubt I would necessarily fit in it because I'm so swole now. I've lifted a lot of weights that I was thinner and not as muscular when I
What
was
kind
in
of
high
weights are you
school.
lifting?
It's
Yeah.
just well, I lifted a sandwich factory sub today. That was
Quite
that was
heavy.
a pound or so.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
You know that, and let me ask you from a freedom of speech standpoint, because this happened to me, and I don't know if he had freedom of speech. DeVecchio's doctor told him he needed to exercise more with dumbbells. So DeVecchio called me up and wanted to start walking with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true,
Is
Ron.
that-
Words
Freedom of
matter. He
speech.
didn't say exercise by dumbbells. He said with.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But when he said, I got to
Yeah.
walk with you every day, Ron, I said, what's the problem? All right, more calls. You're on the air with our attorneys. Legal show brought to you by Beatrice Scott. Hello.
Hi, yeah, I had a question about another car thing. So my wife's a teacher at school. Janitor hit the car with a mower. Immediately, they told her, we'll pay for it, no problem. And so, a few months later, we get quotes, and they say, go ahead, proceed with the repair. I tell the body shop, small shop guy I've worked with before. He says, all right, I'll contact them. And then they call us back and say, we're not going to pay in advance because we're a school and we won't do that. And then they tried to have us go to another shop. Well, long story short, it was agreed upon that we would pay and they would reimburse us. Well,
Did you get it in writing?
come December, it was not in writing. But they sent us the reimbursement check, which is not the problem. But the problem is they left out the taxes. And there was no conversation about the tax exemption status of that. And when they called my body shop, they said, remove the taxes. And he's like, no, it's already closed case. He's like, and no, was not tax exempt. That's me. And he was my customer. And so now I'm just kind of wondering.
How much are the taxes?
It's not a huge, it was only $110,
Oh,
but
my
I feel slighted.
Okay,
And so I just
Yeah,
wanna
chalk
know,
that up.
it's not really about
Life
the
is too
money. I just
short.
wanna know if that.
Stop
Right.
being argumentative. Pay the $110 like Beatrice says and move on with your life.
Yeah, life is too
Yeah,
short. You
don't
get hung up
make-
on that.
Yeah, and your wife
All right.
works there. Don't.
Yeah, you don't want to
Yeah,
burn
you don't wanna,
bridges.
you just. That just make life miserable on her. Don't do that.
At least you got the money and they fixed it for you, okay?
Yeah.
Don't be so cheap, all right? Come on, man. All right.
I see. I'm not being cheap. I feel like they were being cheap to me.
No. All
Well, they
right.
saved the taxpayers $110. You should thank them. That's even your tax
Right.
money, man. Like, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. You're on the air with our attorneys tonight. Hello, including one from Cincinnati. Hello.
Two.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Yes. What's your question for the guys?
Price for your IP guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get one of these.
yeah.
Here we go.
Okay.
You're on,
Made my
Keith.
week.
The other day I found out that an individual started a brewery and named the beer with my last name. So instead of it being like Verb Beer, it would be my beer. And I was not contacted about it, and I'm just wondering what course I should take.
Well,
Is it an honor to name a beer after?
Well, not. I mean, do you have a common last name? Is it the brewer's last name as well?
or Smith?
Yeah.
For Smith, yeah. There's a lot
Do
of
you have
Smith.
a
No, it's
Sam
it's
Adams.
a
might be.
unique last name, and the thing that what I'm trying to get at is I've been involved with beer for like 35 years. I don't know, if there's any coincidence or what, but I'm a friend of mine told me that I should just send a cease and desist to begin with.
Do you know the guy?
And
Do you drink there?
I've
Yes
been
or no?
involved with beer for like 40 years.
no,
No. Okay. So you never drink there, and you never ordered one. You weren't a regular where they named the beer after you because you ordered all the time. Is yes or no?
nope, absolutely
All right.
not.
So
Nope.
and you have an uncommon last name, and you're saying he named it after you. But did you ever trademark your name?
No.
All right. Go ahead. Let's go to Mr. Intellectual.
Keith.
Well, generally speaking, it's hard to trademark your last name unless you're a famous person. I have done that in my career where you have someone that's so recognized that you would associate their last name as a source of goods and services, which is really what a trademark is. When you put a logo or a word mark on a business, generally speaking, it's the indicator of the goods and services, and goodwill accrues to that. There are other examples in trademark law where you can trademark menu items. I think it's a little bit more complex with last names of people that are less well known. No offense to the caller.
We don't know who he is.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it could be locally
Sounded
famous.
familiar.
Was your last name Jingleheimer Schmidt?
There might be a song about you, which is another area of law I practice, which is copyright law.
No, nope.
Yeah, and it's not a scenario where they have a picture of you, and they're announcing that this is a beer. I mean, anything like that.
I think even
No,
to show that it's
but
him.
the individual is, I guess he was in a Batman movie.
You were in
Can
a
I-
Batman
So,
movie?
no, the guy who started the brewery, I guess he had an issue with drinking, and now the beer actually is it's a non-alcoholic beer. So they're trying to capitalize on no alcohol beers have become kind of trendy here in the past probably 5 years, if not longer. And I'm just curious, to see if there's if I could get them to. Well, I don't know what I could do. That's what I'm called.
So what I would say without more facts, you might want to consult a lawyer to talk about whether or not you have some right of publicity. It just from what I'm hearing, excuse me, I don't seem to hear anything that this is associated with you personally. It's not invoking your name, causing people to think that you may have endorsed this product, which tends to be another issue in trademarks, which is where someone thinks that you are the source of the goodwill or source of the products, and you don't necessarily want that because the product isn't of a quality that you would approve of, or you just don't want someone using your name, your likeness, your image. Those are intellectual property rights that can either be licensed by contract or protected either under copyright law or trademark law.
Okay. That sounds like
Okay.
you don't have that good a case. It's kind of like in my house. Would DeVecchio have a case when I tell my wife after I eat a big meal, I say to my wife, I got to go take a DeVecchio.
Oh, come on, Ron.
Oh,
man.
sorry.
In
I
fairness,
mean,
I call it a Miller Novak.
I'm still wondering what that guy's name is.
Yeah.
Is it
Like it's
Affleck?
Michael Jordan or something like that. Like it's Michael Jordan Lager. You know what I mean? Like, what is it?
no,
Like, I
you
wanna
guys
know.
don't understand.
He was in
He's-
Batman. Is it Adam West?
He was offended, and I think you guys would equally be offended, including Matt Miller, if they named a non-alcoholic beer after you. I would, that's questioning your manhood, I think, don't you?
I don't know. I'm wearing a bow tie, Ron. Maybe I actually would be okay.
now we
with,
come full circle.
Yeah, with a
Yeah.
non-alcoholic.
My
ale.
last name is
Well,
Novak.
that makes sense now. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he's probably a vegetarian too, so who knows? All right, final question. Make it quick. You're on with the attorneys. Running out of time.
Hey, my name's Keystone Light. My last name. Is there any way that the other guy's name is the same?
Keystone
I
Light.
think
That's
the
good.
brewery would have a problem with you for infringement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Anheuser-Busch.
Hey,
That's a good
I got a
question.
serious question if you got time.
Quickly
Is
go.
it? I know it's shady, but is it proper for somebody to come and say, "Yeah, we'll sell you this," and you don't agree to the price? They say, "Oh, we got some old stock in the back. We could give it to you for half price." Is that illegal or just shady?
I don't know that it's illegal.
I need to
I
know
don't
more
even know-
about the
yeah, well, yeah.
context. I mean, is this
What are you-
guy
yeah,
saying
what's the-
this with watches inside of like a trench
Or is,
coat?
or is it like Coach purses
It
under
was
your?
for roofing, and the guy said he had some old roofing, the same color we
Oh,
wanted.
you don't want old
Just
shingles in the back. You
Don't get
want
old
them-
shingles.
Don't get old shingles.
Right.
All right, you don't want to cut corners on your roof. Does that guy wear a bow tie and a plate from Hamilton County? I don't know, whatever. All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron.
Ron.
Talk to you
Legal
next
Show
week.
brought to you by Beatrice Kopp on News Radio 570 WQN.
American warfighters go into battle. If all goes